I also want to talk to you about the war between Israel and Iran. It is inevitable. It is going to happen. The question is when? When? Now the debate is it going to happen before the rapture or after the rapture? That's what people are contemplating and debating about, but nobody really knows. But that war between Israel and Iran is going to happen very, very, very soon.
We begin tonight with the potentially explosive situation involving the U.S., Israel, and Iran. Today, President Obama met with Israel's prime minister, a pairing that has not always gone smoothly. Chief White House correspondent Ed Henry shows us what happened today.
Their relationship has been rocky, but at the start of 2 intense hours in the Oval Office with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, President Obama said the bond is unbreakable. Top U.S. officials are taking great pains in private to say they have a healthy relationship, as the president in public insisted he will have Israel's back.
My policy is prevention of Iran obtaining nuclear weapons. When I say all options are at the table, I mean it.
What's remarkable is the president still has to convince Netanyahu he means it, despite over 3 years of close consultations. Senior U.S. officials flat out admit the point of that speech Sunday to AIPAC in part was to reassure Netanyahu about the president's seriousness of purpose.
Iran's leaders should have no doubt about the resolve of the United States. Just as they should not doubt Israel's sovereign right to make its own decisions.
That last part was jumped on by Netanyahu, who said Israel must be the master of its fate, all but suggesting he has a green light to launch a unilateral strike.
When it comes to Israel's security, Israel has the right, the sovereign right to make its own decisions.
Senior U.S. officials insist all the president was saying is he respects Israel's right to make its own decisions. And the White House firmly believes it would take Iran up to a year to actually build a nuclear weapon, providing a window of time for sanctions to work.
Both the Prime Minister and I prefer to resolve this diplomatically.
There was daylight between them because Netanyahu never said he prefers the diplomatic route, and the president looked uncomfortable as the prime minister seemed to be slyly trying to bring the allies even closer together.
For them, you're the great Satan, we're the little Satan. For them, we are you and you are us. And you know something, Mr. President? At least on this last point, I think they're right. We are you and you are us. We're together.
Today, the White House announced a presidential news conference tomorrow afternoon that had the dual value of allowing the president to not take questions today in the Oval Office with the prime minister and allows him to try and step on Super Tuesday tomorrow. Brett?
Very, very soon. Israel are determined to make sure that Iranians do not get weapons of mass destruction.
Principles of American policy that you reiterated yesterday in your speech, that Israel must have the ability always to defend itself by itself against any threat, and that when it comes to Israel's security, Israel has the right, the sovereign right to make its own decisions. I believe that's why you appreciate, Mr. President, that Israel must reserve the right to defend itself. And after all, that's the very purpose of the Jewish state, to restore to the Jewish people control over our destiny. And that's why my supreme responsibility as Prime Minister of Israel is to ensure that Israel remains the master of its fate.
My friends, you don't have to, you don't need to do nation building in Israel. We're already built. You don't need to export democracy to Israel. We've already got it. And you don't need to send American troops to Israel. We defend ourselves.
and Iran too are determined to get it. And Israel is wanting to even go and attack them. The site where they are doing this uranium enrichment program. Israel will very soon attack, and when they do, Iran will fight back. Americans will support Israel. Countries like Russia and China may also support Iran, and it will trigger to other wars.
Now, on that new report coming in saying that the U.S. thinks that Azerbaijan has recently granted Israel access to air bases along its border with Iran. If true, that means the Israelis could strike Iran's nuclear facilities without having to refuel, and that is a big change in Israel's military situation. John Bolton is the former U.S. ambassador to the UN and a Fox News contributor. Hello, Mr. Ambassador.
Hi, Alice. I'm glad to be here.
So if these new reports are correct, that Israel is now being granted access to Azerbaijan, what does this mean?
Well, I'd say two things. One, substantively, obviously Israel can do the math and the geography, and if it can get positions closer to Iran's nuclear targets to be able to attack them, that's so much the better from Israel's point of view. Israel knows how difficult preemptive military attack would be, and it's not surprising if these reports are true, and I'm not commenting one way or the other whether they are. But I think there's another point here beneath the substantive point, and that is that these reports come from American intelligence officials. Now, if you think back a month or so ago, Defense Secretary Panetta said publicly that he thought if Israel attacked Iran, it would be in the April, May, June period. And I think the reason he did that was that the Obama administration's private effort to pressure Israel not to attack Iran were failing, and they had decided to go public. I think this leak today is part of the administration's campaign against an Israeli attack.
Yeah, in fact, you're not alone. There are reports today in Israel News that, in fact, the U.S. is leaking this classified information in order to dissuade Israel. So why is the U.S. doing that?
I think the Obama administration has long believed that an Israeli attack was worse than an Iranian nuclear weapon. The president says that containment and deterrence of Iran is not his policy, and I think today that's true. But it's his plan B. It's his backup plan when his current efforts at sanctions fail and diplomacy fails and Iran gets nuclear weapons. And I think that the pressure that the administration has put on Israel has been just merciless behind the scenes. But nonetheless, as I say, every evidence is that the pressure's failing, that the Israeli government will do what they think is necessary. So the Obama administration has torqued it up a notch, and now they're going to reveal very sensitive, very important information that will allow Iran to defeat an Israeli attack. I think that's what's going on.
So if Israel does take advantage of these Azerbaijani airstrips or places that they can launch from, what does that mean for the U.S.?
Well, I'm not saying I have any knowledge about anything in Azerbaijan, but what it means is that the likelihood of an Israeli attack would be more successful because the distances are shorter. They can have their planes over the target for longer periods of time. They have to worry less about aerial refueling. There are a whole host of reasons why being able to attack from closer in positions makes sense. So releasing this information so that the Iranians now know about it takes away a potentially very powerful mode of attack that hitherto the Israelis had been able to keep secret.
Former Ambassador John Bolton, thanks so much for your expertise.
And so the question is that, will it be before the rapture or after the rapture? That's why you have to know that what is happening now is very serious. We are living in a prophetic timeline. You can't afford to be living in sin and ignore Jesus Christ, because without Jesus Christ you are going to die in your sin and end up in hell, or also go through the tribulation. You'll be left behind. So please, when you hear about Iran, Israel, it is a wake-up call to the body of Christ, to humanity, that Jesus is coming soon and that this world is very soon going to be destroyed. Everything that needs to be shaken is going to be shaken.
In our last hour, we learned that the White House is moving ahead with new sanctions on Iranian oil to punish Tehran for its nuclear program. The president deciding that there is enough crude oil on the world markets to take this step without harming the U.S. or its allies. But this comes after explosive accusations that the White House leaked classified information to stop Israel from attacking Iran. Yesterday on our show, former Ambassador John Bolton called out the administration after reports surfaced that Israel had been granted access to airfields in Azerbaijan, that's along Iran's northern border. Let's listen.
I think that the pressure that the administration has put on Israel has been just merciless behind the scenes. But nonetheless, as I say, every evidence is that the pressure's failing, that the Israeli government will do what they think is necessary. So the Obama administration has torqued it up a notch, and now they're going to reveal very sensitive, very important information that will allow Iran to defeat an Israeli attack. I think that's what's going on.
So does this jeopardize our relationship with Israel? Let's ask Fox News national security analyst Kt. McFarland. Kt, great to see you.
Good to be with you.
Do you agree with Ambassador Bolton and what he said yesterday that the U.S. is intentionally leaking this classified information to undermine Israel and get it to stop whatever plans it has to attack Iran?
Well, the administration doesn't want any kind of a problem in the Middle East before the election. They don't want an Israeli attack on Iranian sites because they think it'll lead to a regional war, draw the United States in. They don't want that kind of a situation because they think it'll lead to high oil prices, high gasoline prices. The way I think about it right now is it's like a foot race where everybody's racing. You've got Iran racing to get to the finish line of getting nukes as fast as they can. You have Israel racing to stop Iran from making those nukes. And you have the United States racing to stop Israel from stopping Iran.
I mean, of course the U.S. doesn't want to be drawn into another war. Nobody wants another war. That's
Even Israel doesn't want another
war. Of course. I mean, that's logical. Is there any way for Iran to take whatever action it feels necessary without the U.S. getting dragged into something?
Well, the question is it one of time? You know, how much time does everybody have left? And I've got to tell you, the people who know aren't talking, and the people who are talking probably don't know. The question is, does Iran get to that finish line before the election? Does Israel realize that it only has a certain amount of time, so it's got to have some preemptive attack? Or, as President Obama is saying today, do we let sanctions work? There's enough time. Those sanctions are somehow going to get the Iranians to go to the negotiating table and give up their nukes. However, they have not up until this point.
But what about this other question of the U.S. possibly leaking classified information and compromising Israel if, in fact, nobody knew that there were air bases at Azerbaijan that were going to be made available? What does this do to the relationship with Israel?
I think the bigger problem this week was not so much the leaking of information about the Azerbaijan airfields that Israel might or might not use. You know, look, Israel's trying to hedge all of its bets. It's looking for friends. It's looking for military capabilities. It's looking for sabotaging the Iranian program. It's looking for assassinating potential Iranian scientists involved in that program. But to me, the bigger problem was that open mic. When President Obama leaned over to the Russian leader and said, "Don't worry, after the election I'll have more flexibility." Now, these are the same Russian leaders who have just spent 6 months trashing the United States in their election campaign. If you're the country of Israel and you're the Prime Minister of Israel and you're listening to that and you're hearing an American president saying, once I'm reelected there'll be a different deal, you've got to wonder, hey, this is the guy who just said, I've got your back. Don't worry, we're not going to let Iran get nuclear weapons. You've got to wonder that after Obama is reelected, if he is, can Israel count on his word?
I see, because it makes it seem as though the president is disingenuous.
To everybody. You have to wonder, where's the truth here? And if Obama is saying to Israel, wait till after the election, whatever you do, wait till after the election, you got to wonder if after the election, is he still your friend?
Let's talk about what he announced today in terms of the sanctions on these foreign financial institutions that do business with Iran. What impact will that have, do you think?
There are a couple of things going on with these sanctions. We've had sanctions for years with Iran. They haven't stopped Iran's behavior. We're now into a new phase of sanctions, and these are basically targeting the Iranian banking system. And it's like think of it as putting like a great big embargo around Iranian oil, but you're using banks instead of battleships. What's the objective? What are you trying to do with these sanctions? Well, one idea, the administration says that the Iranians will realize that they've got to go to the negotiating table and negotiate away their nukes. I think that's naive. The closer Iran gets to those nukes, they're going to race to that finish. The other objective might be to say to the Iranians, to the Iranian people, things are so bad You should go out into the streets again, topple your regime the way the Egyptians did, the way the Syrians are trying to do, the way the Libyans have done, the way the Moroccans have done, and then maybe Iran under different leadership has a different plan.
Well, yes, except that Iran tried that. The Iranians tried that, and we didn't necessarily have their backs.
Totally. We snuffed them. I mean, that was, in fact, I think, the beginning of the Arab Spring, when the Iranian people went to the streets in 2009. The question will be now for this administration, if the Iranian people go to the streets again, and I'm not saying they will, but if they were, would this president then welcome them the same way that he welcomed the Egyptians who went to the streets?
So do you think that's the answer? To foment an uprising there?
They're lousy options. We either bomb Iran, let Iran get the bomb. Those are two losers. You know, what is a regional war? What is a nuclear Iran? Is there a third option? Is there an option C? I think it's a long shot, but I would go for option C, try to crash their economy using the oil weapon.
All right, KT McFarland, thanks so much. Always great to have your experience.
Get yourself prepared and know Jesus as your Lord and personal Savior, that you may have eternal life. He is the way, the truth, and the life. No one has access to the Father except through Him. Recently, Putin also became the president, have been elected to be the president of Russia. That guy, for some reason, I don't trust him. I don't trust that guy. I believe that he has the spirit of Stalin and Mao Zedong. When the time comes, he will be working against countries like Israel, and they will be used in during those wars. So please get yourself ready.
Tit-for-tat attacks are escalating. Militants in Gaza sending rockets into southern Israel, the Israeli Defense Force has been retaliating. The military said it carried out at least 10 air attacks against rocket launching sites and a weapons storage facility by Monday afternoon. Palestinian officials said at least 2 militants and 3 civilians were killed in the Gaza Strip. A student, a father, and a daughter were among the dead. They said dozens were wounded, including several children. On the Israeli side, officials say the newly introduced Iron Dome missile system has intercepted dozens of the rockets aimed their way since the clashes started. Still, schools in the area were closed for a second day to avoid casualties. The latest exchanges began Friday when an Israeli airstrike killed top militant commander Zuhair al-Qaisi, allegedly to stop a plan to infiltrate Israel through Egypt's Sinai Peninsula. Though the violence since shows no immediate signs of subsiding, many Israelis and Palestinians seem eager to avoid the kind of all-out war that erupted 3 years ago.
Every possible effort is being exerted to begin a process of de-escalation and to maintain the calm, which serves all parties' interests. We don't need escalation.
So far, truce attempts have failed, though, and feelings were running high at funerals in Gaza for those killed in Monday's strikes. Karen Sloan, The Association.
Nobody knows the day or the hour of the coming of the Messiah. He'll come like a thief. But what the Lord has displayed here very clearly is that this war is related to the coming of the Messiah. It may be that when this war takes place sharp like this, then it takes 3-4 months or 1 year, and Israel signs the 7-year deal, peace deal.
Alafu Israeli itaeka sahihi yale makubaliano ya amani ya miaka 7.
After 3 years, 1 year, 3 days, who knows?
Baada ya miaka 3, mwaka 1, siku 3, nani ajuae?
So nobody can say that when that war takes place, the rapture happens the same day.
Basi hakuna mtu awezaye kusema kwamba wakati vita hivyo vitatendeka, unyakuzi unatendeka siku hiyo hiyo.
Today here,
leo hapa,
as I was playing for you the clips,
nilipokuwa nikiwachezea hizo awamu,
the reportage on this war,
ripoti juu ya vita hivi,
the Lord stole me into a trance.
Bwana aliniiba katika usingizi kidogo.
And I saw a lot of Israeli aircraft on the runway.
Na nikaona ndege nyingi za Kiisraeli pale kwa runway,
at high speed taking off.
Zikiwa kwenye kasi ya juu kabisa zinaanza safari.
And I heard the voice saying,
na nikasikia sauti ikasema,
look, this war has broken out.
Tazama, hivi vita vimelipuka.
And there is a follow-up vision most recently.
Na kuna maono ya kufuatilia hivi majuzi kabisa.
When the Lord again showed me the aircrafts.
Wakati mara tena Bwana alinionyesha ndege.
And by voice he said.
Na kwa sauti akasema.
Look, the war has broken out.
Tazama, vita vimelipuka.
The war has broken out.
Vita vimelipuka.
So this war is related to the coming of the Messiah.
Na kwa hivyo vita hivi vinaambatana na kuja kwake Masia.
While nobody may know the day or the hour.
Wakati hakuna mtu anaweza kujua siku wala saa.
The rapture could happen right before the war.
Unyakuzi pia waweza kutendeka kabla ya hivyo vita.
Such that when the war takes place, then they announce one peace deal right away there and then.
Kiasi ya kwamba wakati vita vile vitatendeka, mara moja wanatangaza ule mkubaliano wa amani papo hapo.
Or
ama
the rapture could happen after this war.
Unyakuzi pia waweza kutendeka baada ya hivi vita.
But the most important thing,
lakini jambo la muhimu sana,
the most important message that today's news,
ujumbe wa muhimu zaidi ambao habari za leo
screams out to the church,
zinatokeza kwa kanisa,
is that time is over.
Ni kwamba wakati umekwisha. Rani wanaenda kupigana.
Now you know it for yourself.
Sasa unajijulia mwenyewe.
That war
kwamba hivyo vita
has a lot to do with the coming of the Messiah.
Vina mengi sana kuhusiana na kuja kwake Masia.
That war
hilo vita
has so much to do with the rapture of the church.
Vina mengi kabisa kuambatana na unyakuzi wa kanisa.
What I've shared tonight,
kile ambacho nimeshiriki usiku wa leo,
is not for laughing.
Si vya kuchekea.
Is not laughable.
Na si vya kucheka.
Is not to be taken lightly.
Wala si vya kuchukuliwa kirahisi.
This
haya
touches on the very eternity of people.
Yanagusia kwa umilele wa watu.
Nobody can ever smile at this.
Hakuna mtu anayeweza kutabasamu kwa haya.
Because today,
manake leo,
I have been surprised
nimeshtuliwa
that among the prophecies I've ever given across the earth,
ya kwamba miongoni mwa unabii ambao nimewahi kupeana kote kote duniani,
this prophecy of the nuclear war coming to Iran,
huu unabii wa vita vya nyuklia vijavyo Irani,
is the one I have brought extensively across the entire face of the earth and severally.
Ndivyo ambavyo nimetabiri kote kote kwa urefu na upana katika pembe zote za dunia, tena mara kwa mara.
And we know it, precious people,
na twayajua watu wa dhamani,
that it is said
kwamba inasemwa hivi,
that end time Bible prophecy,
ya kwamba unabii wa Biblia wa nyakati za mwisho,
that touches on the church,
unaogusia kanisa
and the coming of the Messiah,
na kuja kwake Masia,
gravitates
unazunguka
around the state of Israel.
Unazunguka taifa la Israeli.
And today we've seen it here.
Na leo tumeiona hapa
that Israel is sitting at the center of biblical prophecy.
Ya kwamba Israeli imeketi katikati mwa unabii wa Biblia.
But I want to say one thing.
Lakini nataka kusema jambo moja.
That may the Lord bless you.
Kwamba Bwana na awabariki.
May the Lord open your eyes.
Bwana sema dhiki.
Listen to me, precious people.
Nisikizeni watu wa dhamani.
The Israel-Iran war,
vita vya Israeli na Irani,
that is going to take place,
vinavyokwenda kutendeka,
will be so severe,
vitakuwa vikali sana,
that there will be a hit back,
ya kwamba kutakuwepo na kulipiza,
where Iran hits back,
ambapo sasa Irani italipiza,
and it's going to be a flare up,
na itakuwa kuwaka kukuu sana,
and it will be led by Russia,
na vitaongozwa na Urusi.
As you can see today,
kama vile mweza kuona leo,
in the news I am going to read for you here,
katika habari inaenda kuwasomeeni hapa,
how Russia wants,
jinsi ambavyo Urusi inaonya,
Russia wants Israel and United States,
Urusi inawaonya Israeli na Umoja wa Majimbo ya Marekani,
from attacking Iran,
kwamba wasije wakavamia Iran.
So you begin to see the central role of Russia,
kwa hivyo waanza kuona sehemu ya ukatikati ya Urusi
in this war,
katika vita hivi.
Even the nuclear plants in Iran,
hata vile vituo vya nyuklia kule Iran,
they have been built by Russia,
vimejengwa na Urusi.
I want to read for you a lot of news reportage here from her
Haaretz newspaper, which is an Israeli newspaper.
Nataka kuwasomeni ripoti nyingi za habari hapa toka katika gazeti la Kiisraeli linaitwa Haaretz.
But when this war takes place,
lakini wakati vita hivi vitatendeka,
it will be so severe,
vitakuwa vikali mno,
to cause Israel to sign a peace treaty for 7 years.
Vitasababisha Israeli kusahihisha makubaliano ya amani kwa miaka 7.
A false peace treaty.
Na yatakuwa makabiliano ya uongo ya amani.
And that means when this war takes place,
na hiyo inamaanisha kwamba wakati vita hivi vitatendeka,
it happens at the time when the rapture is here.
Vitatendeka wakati ambapo unyakuzi uko hapa.
Because
kwa sababu
when it takes place,
vitakapotendeka,
Israel is compelled to sign a 7-year peace treaty, a false one.
Israeli italazimika iingie katika makubaliano ya amani ya uongo
with the Arab states and Russia,
na mataifa ya Kiarabu na Urusi,
and the enemies of God,
na maadui wa Mungu.
That is the tribulation.
Na hiyo ndio dhiki.
The rapture has happened.
Unyakuzi umetendeka.
Shalom.
Shalom.
Drank a lot and partied a lot, and I was moved to Tucson, Arizona, and I was working at a construction site, and one of the guys brought some water from Mexico that was contaminated, and I ended up drinking it by accident. Got real sick, contracted cholera, and within about 72 hours I was flat on my back and basically dehydrated. That's when I passed away. I noticed that when I passed on, that of course I wear glasses and I'm very nearsighted. I noticed that, first thing I noticed is that I wasn't wearing my glasses and I could see clearly across the room. And when I turned my head, I noticed that my body wasn't moving. And I was lifted right out of my body and hovered over my body, looking down at myself and looking around. And next thing I knew, I went through the ceiling of the room I was in, and I was transported into a very, very, very black, dark void. I could hear like somebody speaking to me, like telepathy, and it was explaining to me many, many things that I no longer remember, but most of the idea was explaining to you the whys of life. Why there was evil in the world, why this, why, people have questions all the time. These were being answered to you as you were being transported to this light. And time you got to where the light was, you knew what happened, you know what's going on, you know what happened, you know you died, you know you're going to be judged, and everything as you're traveling, it's made so clear to you that what's happening is perfectly just and right. Oh, yeah. This one vortex was spinning, and a lady that just died in a car wreck came through, and she was deposited right there. And I saw her as she arrived, and inside her cube, she saw it as the illusion of her grandmother's farm, her grandparents' farm that she loved so well as when she was growing up. And her grandmother recently passed away too, so she got in this cube, and immediately she thought she was in heaven because there was her grandmother waiting there welcoming her. The grandmother that was actually a demon that gave the illusion of being the grandmother said, "Dear Pudding, you made it to heaven. I'm so glad you're here." And she really thought that she was in paradise. But there was a darker side to her. She would make her children be what she wanted. Her children wanted something else. She wanted them to be this. And if they didn't do it her way, it was the fist. It was verbal abuse. It was cutting down. So as she sat down, I was watching it, and the tree's limbs just grabbed her. And then she realized she was not in paradise. And as we passed some cubes, there were people inside, and they were trapped in flames. And it was like their skin was still intact, but they were burning. And there was an individual, and he was playing pool. And this guy was a child serial killer, but he lived in the 1940s. But he was in this pool hall playing this pool before the punishments would commence again. He thought he had a break. And then these people in there would torment him and come and run and just grab him and tear him up. And out of the sky I could see this big demon coming down. It reminds me of a snake. He just gobbled them and swallowed them. Then all the other little demons came up and said, you know, that's no fair. We didn't have our chance with him yet. He regurgitated him back up. He was whole. I know this sounds really bizarre, but that's what happened. Then all the other little demons, little teeny things, about 1 foot, 3 foot tall, just jumped on him. And he was powerless. And they were beating and clawing, and there was no rest for this guy whatsoever after that. It was constant torment. Everything that he ever done was being justly put back to him. Came to a cube. I was looking at this cube, and this was a woman. She was dressed in fine garb. She was a temple prostitute, basically what it was. And she was somebody who died in Corinth around 69 AD. For a price, she would have a newborn son. For some reason, their religion was some strange thing. When you have a newborn son, you can offer it into a statue, and there's flames underneath the statue. You put the baby on the statue, and basically the baby would be cooked. And here she is in this temple. There was no let up to her torment. It was almost like all the little babies that she burned that were hers and other people's were tormenting her, mocking her, pouncing on her, just crawling and tearing her up. And she just screamed, and I had to turn away and walk. There's an individual that she practiced the black dark craft. She was a witch. I just knew that she was a witch, but she died many, many, many hundreds of years ago. But she was trapped in a coffin, scratching, trying to get out. She couldn't get out. She was in that position for years and years and years and years, hundreds of years. And then finally, when she got it open, all the demons would pounce on her. And I walked on to another cube. We looked in this other cube on this row, and there was another lady. And she believed that Mother Earth could save her. And that if she honored the trees and the rocks, and she was into this nature thing, and part of their religious practice that she would practice would be getting out in the fields and dancing around a fire with a bunch of other people doing the same. The people that she thought that she was with were actually demons, and they would come up to her and say, you did this. They pick up a stone. You say, the stone will save you here. And they smacked her with it. So she was standing there, and the demons reached down there and reached in her mouth, ripped out her tongue and part of her thing. It says, you talk bad? Oh, the stones are not going to save you. Nobody can save you. Then they ripped off her, just actually took her skin and just peeled it off. It was really slow and agonizing to shreds until nothing to the skeletons. Then they took the bones and broke the bones. And she felt everything. And then her body would come back together. The flesh would come back together. And she'd be whole again. And it would start all over again. A different scene would happen. And some of the cruelest people on earth were in these. You know, some people, I don't like to say names of people or anything like that. But I will, you know, this one particular individual is definitely there, and everybody knows who it is. It's Adolf Hitler. Hitler was sitting in a cube. It was open, and it was just burning flames. Hitler was sitting in a cube. It was open, and it was just burning flames. He's just sitting there burning. And his flesh wasn't burning, and he had this hideous look on his face. And as he was burning, the flesh would be rotting, and he was feeling every bit of it. It was almost like every oven of the gas, of the concentration camps, all the tortures that went on there were being meted back to him in one intense flaming bit of stoked up white hot heat that would rot his flesh away at the same time, make him ashes, come back. He was just being tormented like that. He was just, I remember having a weird look on his eyes. It was just angry, vicious anger.